Thank you for downloading this Brum Radio podcast. For more podcasts, visit brumradio.com.
And now, for your listening pleasure, it's the Brum Picture Show, brought to you by Brum Radio.
Hello, and welcome to this very special episode of the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, the weekly film show covering local, independent and world cinema, brought to you by Birmingham-based community cinema collective Screen B14. Now, we've got a very special episode today. We won't be following our usual format, and instead, we're going to be taking a look at the year that was in film, 2023. So now, I've got a very special treat for you. I am going to read a list of all of the films that I have watched this year. You see, I'm not one of these modern letterbox people. I keep an old school notes file on my phone of all the films that I've watched throughout the year. So, here we go. Number 1, Barbarian, 2022. 4 stars. Number 2, The Imposter, 2012. 4 stars. Number 3, Something in the Dirt.
Paul,
What?
are you literally going to read every film you've ever watched?
Well, I mean, there's only 269 films that I've watched this year, so I think
At that pace, it will take you 57 minutes to read the entire list. I don't think this is good. This isn't good radio, mate.
But it's an hour-long show, 57
Mate, get a Letterboxd. We're on Letterboxd. Brum Picture Show
All
on
right.
Letterboxd.
Well,
I log every film we mention in the show.
I was enjoying it.
Oh, thanks.
I'm not logging. What is it? 237.
269.
I'm not logging 269 films, mate.
Well-
That's ridiculous.
Well, who are you people? I've just come in here to share with the listeners my films of the year and my arbitrary star ratings, and you come along in here and tell me that's not going to be good radio.
I'm the head programmer of Screen B14. My name's Nadine. I'm a writer-director in my own right.
All right.
And I've been on at least 4 episodes of this radio show with you previously. So I'm slightly concerned that you might have hit your head or something, because it's a bit weird that you don't remember who I am.
Well, and who are you?
Well, your star ratings aren't arbitrary, mate.
Well, I don't know. I feel all star ratings are kind of arbitrary. Because, going through this list, just realised, 4 stars is kind of meaningless, is it? Oh, you want to carry on?
No,
okay.
No.
Number 5.
No. That's enough of that, honestly.
Right.
I have to say, I do admire your analogue list keeping.
Mm-hmm.
You remind me of a young Paul Schrader. I was reading Schrader on Schrader not long ago, and there was a line that really struck me where he just said, "All I did was see films and keep a log." And I read that and I thought, oh, that's all I do, except I do it on Letterboxd. I think a young Paul Schrader would add Letterboxd.
Yeah, man.
Forget about it, mate. But yeah, no, you should get on Letterboxd at the very least to follow us, Brum Picture Show.
Yeah, all right.
Or to man the Brum Picture Show Letterboxd, so I don't have to do all the grunt work.
All right, fine. Well, thanks, Nadine. Did I actually introduce myself? I'm Paul. Hi. I present this show. And we also have
Rory, hello. I've been on this 3 times now, I think.
Yeah.
'Cause
not as many as me.
No, because I had to miss one to further my career.
and look how that worked out.
Ooh.
Still hurts a second time. And you oohed it yourself.
I have heard that you've got a short film coming out.
I do indeed, yes.
Letters from Space. Amazing script. I've read it. It's awesome. Do check out Rory's fundraiser. Let's get this film made.
Which is what all great careers are built upon.
Exactly.
A crowdfunder.
Exactly.
Yeah, or just going around and seeing some dentists.
I mean, what? No. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam Raimi.
And shout out to a director I've worked with, Ollie Poult, who did actually raise money through a root canal.
That's honestly untapped.
That's our first film, yeah.
Untapped source of money there.
I don't think it was a root canal. Anyway, that is a ridiculous sidetrack. My name's Rory. I'm a writer, soon to be director and stand up, and I love doing this, and I love to see you guys, and I'm looking forward to our roundup.
Oh, well, despite the fact that you've just completely rejected my list of films, I'm glad to have you both here.
I loved your list.
I'd like to read it as a list and not hear it on the radio.
Well, maybe we'll put it on the internet.
I have to say, I am slightly jealous because how many films did you say you watched this year?
269, which was nothing in comparison to 2021, where I watched 479 films.
What was going on? Was that COVID year?
Yeah, it was a COVID year. It wasn't the COVID year. But yeah.
I only watched 166 films this year.
Amateur. Well, no, I suppose it just means that you're...
if only I didn't have a job and then I could just watch films all day.
I know.
That sounded really bitter. If only I didn't have a job.
Oh, dear.
No, but who wouldn't love to watch films all day and keep a log?
Exactly.
Like Radio Paul or Paul Schrader.
Exactly. We're peas in a pod.
Yeah.
He and I.
Pea for
Well,
Paul.
Well, hopefully if enough people carry on listening to this show, then one day we'll all be paid to sit around and watch films all day and just waffle.
That'll be the dream.
That'll be the dream. But anyway, well, I suppose since as you're both here, we might as well have a group discussion about the year of film in 2023. Woo! So, I mean, it's been a decent year for film, hasn't it, really? How would you describe 2023?
It's been a bumper year. I think there's been some good films. Not that many 5-star films for me, if I'm honest. But generally, I think it's been a good year for film, and I'm looking forward to the awards season, seeing what gets an award and what gets rejected. I love all that.
You see, I did notice this because I was comparing my list from this year to my list from previous years, and oh my goodness, I was definitely way less generous with the whole 5-star things this year. And I don't know whether that's because I've not seen as many good films, or I've just become more cynical and miserable and harder to please in the last year. I don't know what that is.
There are a lot of films that I think are getting a lot of awards buzz that haven't reached our shores yet. So I feel like, or have just come out. Like, I haven't seen Anatomy of a Fall yet. I'm gonna see it like tonight. So unfortunately I can't talk about it on this show.
No.
But I've heard it's amazing. So maybe in the next episode I can talk about it. Priscilla, I've been looking forward to that. Not out until January. So I think a lot of these awards buzzy films, in fact, one of my favourite films, I don't even know if it got a theatrical release this year, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's becoming increasingly a thing, is good films just aren't getting theatrically released over here. Like the new John Woo film isn't getting a UK release date, apparently. Like that's madness, isn't it?
Well, that's where your community cinemas come in, like Screen B14. And I program the films for Screen B14, and I'm going to let you into a little secret. A lot of the times I program films that I missed at the cinema and that I want to see. Pearl, hadn't seen that, programmed it. It was awesome. Asteroid City, hadn't seen it, programmed it. Awesome. Sold out as well. Past Lives, we're going to be showing that. I hadn't seen it when I programmed it, have seen it now. We can talk about it later in the show.
Yeah, we certainly can. But yeah, there's certainly been some big films this year that I'm sure we may or may not get onto. Of course, the year started with Damien Chazelle's new opus, Babylon.
Oh my God.
Certainly divided opinion.
I'm going to be mentioning that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But, I mean, is it going to be one of my favourites, or is it going to be one of my biggest disappointments?
Oh, I cannot wait to get into that one. And then, of course, we've also had new Spielberg film, The Fableman, which I'm sure we'll be getting on to. Of course, there's been Avatar. And yes, of course, we've had another 500 Marvel films, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and whatever. No, we shouldn't be.
Wasn't one of your faves of the year then, Ant-Man and the Wasp?
This wasn't this year, was it?
Yeah, it's on it's the 8th film on my list.
But that wasn't this year.
That was this year. Ant-Man and the Wasp was Quantumania came out in
Quantumania. I thought you meant Ant-Man and the Wasp.
What did you rate Ant-Man and the Wasp?
2 stars. And that was possibly generous. What would you rate it?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it, mate.
Yeah, no, I did not much care for that.
I'm boycotting Marvel.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Sort of. Well, I have watched a couple of episodes of Loki, but who can get enough of Ki Hoi Kwan? Not me. The Quanessence. Get used to it, guys.
What?
I didn't understand a single word of that sentence.
Ki Hoi Kwan from The Goonies. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Oh, him.
Come on, yay!
What, he's in some Marvel stuff, is he?
He's in Loki.
Well, I don't know. I don't care about Marvel stuff.
Whatever.
No. I'm so done with the Marvel stuff. Like I enjoyed the Avengers and all that, but after it got to Endgame, I was like, right, I've had enough of that. I never want to see a superhero film ever again. And then they just keep making them, and now you've got to watch all their TV shows and all their other nonsense to be able to get any understanding of it. In fact, yeah, that was another film that was out this year, Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3.
I didn't see.
No, and I saw it, and I had no idea what was going on for a lot of it, because you had to have seen about 50 hours of other content to be able to get it. It's
Well,
like,
is it me, or are these films... I'm not going to call them theme park rides. I'm not Martin Scorsese, but they're turning into television now.
Yeah.
It feels like if you've missed an episode, you've missed a whole storyline.
Yeah, because that is a lot of that. Because the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, I liked a lot, because it was just like, oh, this is a bit different. This works as a standalone film. And now it's just like you've got to have done so much background reading, and I just found most of that film impenetrable. I was just, what is this? What is happening? Anyway, so we've had that. We've also had Indiana Jones, the new Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny. Of course, it's also been the year of Barbenheimer, the cultural phenomenon. We've had a new Mission Impossible film. We've had a new Poirot film. We've had new Scorsese. We've had new Ridley Scott. We've had...
it has been a good year overall, I think.
The stuff has definitely been released.
That's such a classic Paulism. It's a film that exists. Stuff has definitely been released.
It was released.
You come out with these lines, mate.
There was obviously new John Wick film.
Was there?
Yeah, there was.
Another one?
Yeah. Oh, I love John Wick.
Have we had the ballerina yet? Is that next year?
I think that's next year. Yeah. That should be an interesting one. But yeah, and of course, new Avatar and all sorts. Lots of stuff has certainly been released.
It's a year that has existed.
It's a year that's existed. There were films that you could watch with your eyes and go, oh, that was definitely a thing, wasn't it? Anyway, so we are going to be discussing our least favourite films of the year in some detail. If you would like to get involved and let us know what your favourites of the year or least favourites of the year were, then please do email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com.
Or get on us on our social media platforms, Insta, Facebook, the platform formerly known as Twitter, at ScreenB14, or you can hashtag Brum Picture Show. And we're even on Letterboxd, Brum Picture Show.
That's right. You are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and we are having a very special discussion of the year 2023 in film. So, we're going to start by being a bit negative, because let's face it, it's not been the best year for many of us, so let's get all the negativity out the way.
It's been the best of years, it's been the worst of years for film, hasn't it?
It certainly has. So we're going to talk about our biggest disappointments of the year. Not even our least favourite films, just films that maybe we expected to enjoy.
Yeah.
And then we're like,
just let us down.
It's a hurt. It hurts worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, I can't wait for that film. And then you watch it and you're like, oh.
I'm sure there's a few of these. So,
well, it's funny that you mentioned Babylon earlier, because I'm afraid that has made my list of biggest disappointments. And I've been looking forward to this film for years, I think, ever since I heard it was announced. I loved Damien Chazelle's first film, Whiplash. One of the best edited films I've seen. Really lovely, tight editing, great cinematography that I like, lovely shots, great performances. J. Jonah Jameson was amazing in it. Absolutely deserved his Oscar. Really kind of put Chazelle on the map as a filmmaker to watch, as a new auteur. La La Land, classic. Beautifully shot, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, they're always a great pairing. Some catchy tunes in there. Not a perfect film, but I actually loved the ending because it kind of took us to a place that we weren't expecting. I remember going to see it at the cinema with my sister, and we watched the ending. We're like, oh, was it that was unexpected? Again, visually beautiful. And for a musical, I watched, a fair few musicals, but I have to say, often the romance part, the drama part, is a bit undercooked, and they're kind of saved by the songs and the dance numbers. Whereas this, I feel like, if anything, that was the stronger part of the film. And the chemistry between, Gosling and Stone is obviously brilliant. They've been in so many. I think that was like their fourth film together or something. They just keep getting paired up together. They're like Hepburn and Tracy or something at this point. So yeah, La La Land, brilliant. First Man, didn't love it. It was fine. Great, decent film. Babylon, I was so looking forward to this. I thought it's going to be a big canvas for him. It's old Hollywood. I'm assuming it's based on the book Hollywood Babylon that my mum had on her shelf that I remember dipping into as a teenager, with all these scandalous stories of things that stars had done and had been covered up by the studios, murders and crime and all sorts of, stuff that I can't even get into at this time of day on the radio. And I just thought, this guy's got form. This is going to be awesome. Tobey Maguire's in it, my favourite Spider-Man. Oh my God, I can't wait to see this. I had it on my Letterboxd watch list for, 2 years or something. I've been looking forward to this. Margot Robbie's in it. She's excellent. She's always good in stuff. No. Watched it, didn't care for it.
Well,
I didn't like the tone. I don't think he can do humour. I don't think it's his forte. I think keep it serious or put some musical numbers in there maybe.
La La Land was funny though.
Yeah, but the music, I don't know. The humour in this just didn't land with me. I mean, maybe you're a fan of elephant poop. It wasn't.
I am.
I am.
Didn't work for me
Yeah.
at all. I felt like some of the subject matter could have been taken more seriously, could have been darker in some ways. I think in a post-Me Too era, if that's what we're calling this era that we're living in, I'm calling it that. I think some of those darker elements to sort of Hollywood could have been explored in a more meaningful way. Sometimes I felt like they were played as jokes or taken not seriously. I think all of the characters were desperately unlikable, but not in a way that made them fascinating. As they weren't like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to know more about this character. Some of them were very one note, and I have a lot of time for Margot Robbie. I think she's an excellent actress, but I feel like the performance was one note in this. I just didn't like it. It didn't give me a sense of the period. It felt like it could have been at any time. I didn't feel like I was taken back in time, which is what I love from a period piece. I want to feel like I'm stepping back into another era. I won't go through the storyline, but at the end there's a big compilation of great moments from movies over the years. I think it only sort of served to show us that this was not one of those great movies. I think it was a mistake to add that in. Singing in the Rain is really good. This film, not so much. I didn't connect with it at all on an emotional level. The humour didn't work for me at all. Visually, I wasn't blown away. I remember reading a review, I think it was on Letterboxd, about, because you have all these big epic scenes and all these extras walking along, and it just felt so choreographed. It's so sanitised as well. It's supposed to be this kind of, anything goes era of this sort of Hollywood. Everybody's on drugs and they're doing all these naughty things that they shouldn't be doing. And it just felt, I don't think Chazelle is perverse enough to kind of show that. It just felt sanitized. It felt choreographed. I didn't buy it. It wasn't grimy enough. I don't know what he was going for, but I wasn't buying what he was selling.
Okay. I completely disagree.
Ooh.
No. Well, you know me. If you were listening to our film noir episode and my discussion of Under the Silver Lake, you'll know that I love an absolute
mess.
I love an absolutely self-indulgent mess of a film, and that is exactly what Babylon was. And I had a whale of a time watching it. I was just like, I want to be at one of those ridiculous parties. I want to be fighting a snake with Margot Robbie. I want to be covered in elephant dung.
In that order?
Yeah, in that that probably is the best order, isn't it? Yeah, party, fight with the snake, elephant dung, because you don't want to be covered in elephant dung before you start hanging out with Margot Robbie, or go to the party. You probably wouldn't do very well for yourself there. So
I feel like the party might inebriate you enough to fight the snakes.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
Snake first,
Yeah.
then party, then elephant dung.
right.
Snake.
No, you just said
need
the party
the
would
party
inebriate you enough to fight
No,
the snake.
I don't want to be inebriated.
Oh, you don't want to
No.
be
You
inebriated.
want-
Okay. You wouldn't
Oh.
want a bit of Dutch courage before taking on a snake.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a bit of Dutch cocaine.
The one good thing I'll give it is I think Diego Calva is a brilliant find. I've never seen him in anything before.
Okay.
I think he's got the potential to be a future movie star, something we talked about in our last episode. Who are the new movie stars? Well, maybe Diego Calva, but perhaps this isn't the film that best showcases his talents. But I do think he's got charisma. He's got a great screen presence. I think he needed a better character. I think the script was my problem with this film.
And I just thought it was stupid, and I loved it for it.
Paul, can you both accept that a film is bad and that you love it as a bad film?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure,
I think that's
sure.
actually quite an interesting thing, really.
Yeah, having said that, I don't think it is a bad film.
No.
I just think it's.
I do. I think it's a bad film.
I think it's not a very
I don't-
worthy film.
I don't think it should
You
have
know.
been made.
Oh well, I very much disagree. I'm glad that Babylon is a film that exists, because you know what I love, films that exist.
Well, I guess we
So-
just gotta agree to disagree on this one, mate.
fair dues. Any other disappointments from Nadine?
Do you want me to just list all my disappointments?
well,
It might be-
quickly.
I've got a couple of mini ones.
Very quickly.
Stick to films.
Okay. You know what? I've got a lot of time for the Mission Impossible films. And this one wasn't terrible,
Yeah.
but it was a little bit disappointing after the last one, which was one of the best. I say one of the best. I think Ghost Protocol is my favourite. And I've got a lot of time for Brian De Palma's first one. But I do find the series as a whole is very hit and miss. It feels like often there's a good one, then there's a bad one, then there's a good one, then there's a bad one. And this was one of the... I wouldn't say it's a bad one. I would say it's slap bang in the middle. And if there's anything that isn't disappointing, it's mediocrity.
That's true.
It's not a hot mess. It isn't one of the best. It's
Yeah.
just slap bang in the middle.
I don't know. I feel like all the later Christopher McQuarrie Mission Impossible films have all just been very, very solid, enjoyable romps, and they're exactly what the James Bond films should be these days. And it's just, look what ridiculous stuff Tom Cruise is going to do this time. What's he going to jump off this time? And I don't know.
I thought Fallout has been the best of their pairing so far on this series. And I have to say, honestly, some of my favourite films are Mission Impossible films. Like I said, I love Ghost Protocol. I love the first one. I was really excited about Kittredge's return. If you've seen the first one, Kittredge was a wonderful foil for Ethan in that. There's a brilliant moment of them in a restaurant with these canted angles, these Dutch angles, where the camera's slightly askew. And we get a bit of that in this. And I was like, they're bringing back some of the De Palma imagery. Love it. But there was just too much exposition. I think this film suffered as a part one. Its whole purpose is setting up the part two. There's unnecessary exposition that we don't need. The stunts, they're really cool, but none of them have that kind of gasp that you get when, Ethan headbutts the Burj Khalifa or Ghost Protocol, mate.
I mean, they all blur into one.
Oh,
to be-
my
to be honest,
goodness.
for me.
No. One of the greatest. I watched that on a plane. That was the first time I watched that film. And even on a plane, I was like, oh, my God, I wish I'd seen that film at the cinema, because that literally every time I see that, there's a moment where Tom Cruise has to jump into this window from a distance and he's hanging off, the tallest building in the world. And every time I watch it, I think, oh, my God, I don't think he's going to make it. and he almost doesn't make it. And you're like, oh my God, he's not going to make it. And I've seen that film like, I don't know, 10 times or something. He makes it. There are other films in the series. Spoiler alert. I do admire his dedication to practical effects. And I think that's what gives it that edge. Is the feeling that actually Tom Cruise might kill himself on this one. And I do enjoy... I actually saw Tom Cruise while he was filming this film.
Oh, that's cool.
So he was filming at Grand Central, the train station. I got a train to see my cousin that day. I got ushered into this group. I was like, oh, what's going on here? I got ushered into this crowd of people. Tom leaned over the balcony, gave us some heart hands. We all screamed. It was amazing. And it's quite fun. Noticing Giraffe and Fizz. If you've been to Grand Central, there are places in Grand Central.
Oh, okay, right.
Places you can buy stuff.
Oh, okay.
And eat and drink.
Oh, right.
So that was fun. But yeah, it wasn't as disappointing as Babylon, but I wasn't too impressed.
Quick note, Tom Cruise famously got his car stolen when he was in Birmingham, didn't he?
Yeah, and he ate 2 curries.
Oh, yeah.
In a row.
So there you go.
And that made the news.
Lovely.
That's pretty good. 2 curries in a row.
Yeah, he had one and it was so delicious. He was like, I'll have another one, mate.
Oh.
And that's what makes him a movie star.
That'll be in the next Mission Impossible film. He'll have 5 curries. Anything disappoint you this year, Rory?
Yeah. Again, is disappoint. So it's not like you said. It's not a bad film. It's more of. I didn't think Oppenheimer was a 5-star film for me.
Ooh.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't 5-star for me either.
It wasn't even. Well, I think generally, it felt like it was 2 films rather than just one film. It felt quite disjointed. Like the first film was about. It was really about the Manhattan Project, and then the second film was this courtroom drama. And I felt like the film really should have ended when he was giving that sort of big speech about the potential sort of effects of of dropping the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah. So that was the one. I just felt like it was a bit too long, but not in the same way of like Killers of the Flower Moon was, where it could get away with it, because it just felt because it was too disjointed. I also feel like, and obviously, Christopher Nolan, almost all of his films are that non-linear structure, but it worked for Memento and it worked for Inception because they were the non-linearness of the film was integral to the structure of the film and the film itself. And even with Dunkirk as well, I still think it works quite well. But with Oppenheimer, for me, it felt like, why was it non-linear? It still it still didn't make any sense to me as to why it was non-linear. Why were we jumping back and forth? It didn't feel like it was integral to the film itself.
Yeah, he just can't help himself, can he, that Nolan?
The other thing I felt was I felt like the Manhattan Project for me should have been the focus rather than Oppenheimer himself, which I don't think I've heard really, because the Manhattan Project was one of the most important events in the Cold War, really. It really sort of kicked off, towards the end of the Second World War and then the Cold War. Oppenheimer as a man, for me was second to that event, even though he directly caused it. So I liked like the build-up of his life towards the event. But for me, because it was so significant within history, then the courtroom drama was so insignificant to me compared to the project itself and the effects of it, which is, just complete devastation and then gridlock, really, politically, and then threat of nuclear annihilation, which maybe we're still feeling. So yeah, that was kind of my issues with it. It didn't feel like the core of it didn't make sense to me.
I think my main issue with it was that it was directed by Christopher Nolan. No, seriously, Christopher Nolan has made some absolutely wonderful films, like obviously Memento and everything, and I loved Inception, but Inception was definitely the start of his films becoming overly grandiose. And my main problem with Oppenheimer was that relentless score, and it just didn't stop, and it was so Christopher Nolan, and that was the thing.
The score.
No, I love the score. I just wish it had stopped for a minute, because for a film that is mostly people talking in rooms. I wish it had the confidence in its audience that it just didn't feel the need to make every scene seem so exciting with it's just like, oh, this is happening. Just
Spoon feeding.
just turn the music down for 5 minutes. Let us listen to them have this interesting philosophical conversation. And I think he often feels the need to just be so bombastic with everything. And the man did not understand how to mix dialogue. I don't care what he says about, oh yeah, we're mixing it for the best possible experience in the best possible theatres. But no, you should make
get your ears tested, mate.
Yeah, it's like when there's important expositional stuff. Like I loathed Tenet for that reason. Like just wish it had just kind of dialed down on the Nolan-ness really. And I would have actually preferred the version that was just the courtroom drama. It's incredible that film was so successful for what it is, and I guess maybe that was the way of bringing such a film to a mainstream audience is by presenting it in that way. But yeah, I just wish it had just
my biggest gripe. I agree with Spike Lee. I watched a documentary on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and there's this argument that people say like, oh, well, those bombs ended the war, so it was like a necessary evil. When you hear the real life stories of how people die from an atomic bomb, often slowed, not just the people that were immediately eviscerated, but, people who got radiation sickness, how that stays there, people who died slowly over time. I don't feel there was enough of that in the film. Well, there wasn't any of that in the film, and I think it kind of lends some credence to this, oh, well, it was a necessary evil. I feel like, and I agree with Spike Lee, there should have been something. Christopher Nolan has come back and said it's all from Oppenheimer's point of view, so he wouldn't have been aware of that stuff. But I think that's an excuse. He could have put some shots or something in the film to bring it home to an audience who doesn't know their history, what the effects of those bombs were, and I just don't think there was enough of that in the film.
I do think, that scene when he is doing the speech.
Yeah, it makes it seem like it's a bad thing. Like, I get it, but I feel like a lot of the film is like, we've got to do this, the Nazis are going to do it first. Then the Nazis don't do it, and they carry on anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't explored fully for me.
It was explored, I think, in a theoretical way, which was the courtroom scenes. There was the whole debate of, which I didn't even realise, where they could have done it. They could have just dropped it in the sea and just as a demonstration to the Japanese of how terrible the bomb was.
We could do this,
but there was alternatives. But the idea really was, no, we had to do it.
Exactly, and I feel like
not just to end the war, but also, which was Oppenheimer's thing of, in order to create basically the Cold War, which was the stalemate politically, the nuclear stalemate politically. But you're right, and I also agree, because I came into that film thinking maybe they didn't need to do that because it was focusing on Oppenheimer. But then whenever you make a film about the devastation about the nuclear bomb, you probably need to talk about its devastation.
I think so, especially because, all right, maybe you know your history, maybe you know the backstory, but this wasn't like a niche film. This was a big blockbuster film that lots of people went to see, and I think a lot of young people will go and see that film and they'll only have half the story. And I get the focus was on Oppenheimer, but he had an opportunity to present at least something of that other side, of the real effects of that bomb and why this was such a terrible mistake in my view. I don't think those bombs needed to happen, especially both of them. And I think Christopher Nolan's politics is always a little bit dodgy if you actually start looking into his films. I think this is the best of his films in that respect, but it's still very coming from his point of view and his worldview, and I just wasn't there for that. And again, as people have said, the women in it were very paperly been characterised. I know the film isn't focused on them. Some of the motivations were like, why is she doing that? I've no idea. He hasn't explained it. I'm glad it did well in many ways, because it's not the kind of film you expect to be a big blockbuster.
Yeah.
I think he was attempting something. I don't think he fully realised it, but I do hope Cillian Murphy wins the Oscar because I think he was amazing. I love Cillian.
Yeah, definitely. Of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, I've got to say I preferred Barbie.
Barbie.
So
You know what?
That's-
I won't get into it, but Barbie almost made my disappointment list.
oh,
I just didn't love it. I love what it was trying to say. I love that it made a bunch of money. It is basically a toy commercial, though.
okay. Well, I
can't get around that.
I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, no. Oppenheimer 4 stars, Barbie 5 stars for me.
Fair.
Totally agree.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I guess let's probably move on to my disappointments. Briefly, because I'm not sure, like, this isn't as much of a disappointment because I didn't particularly care for Avatar. But yeah, Avatar 2, I did not enjoy that one. And technically an amazing achievement, but as with a lot of James Cameron stuff, it left me emotionally cold. I didn't care about what happened to anyone. And to quote Spaced, I found it to be a fireworks display of a toy advert.
That was my review of Barbie. And not Barbenheimer.
There we go. And and of course it just falls into the common problems of James Cameron films is that the man can't do dialogue, and I hate all of the military macho business going on. I hated all the bro stuff, all those annoying, oh my goodness, yeah, all those teenage
like
blue
aliens.
people just going bro all the time and all this gung-ho nonsense. So yeah, didn't care for it. Amazing technical achievement, but I have very little interest in seeing any more of it. Just enough. James
Enough
Cameron,
is enough.
stop it.
Fair.
Another big disappointment for me, unfortunately, was Ben Wheatley's Meg 2, The Trench,
Ooh.
because I love Ben Wheatley. He is one of my favourite directors, and he's made some of my absolute favourite films. Sightseers is top 5
Love
films for me.
Sightseers.
And I was really excited to see this because I thought, brilliant, this is going to be silly Ben Wheatley goodness. And there just wasn't enough Ben Wheatley in there for me. And I understand, is a gun for hire in this case, that I just felt like I was hoping to see a little bit more of his personality and his input in there. And I didn't see any of that at all, really. And I wish it had been more violent. And no, I do.
I wish it had been more
I
violent.
do, for that kind of film,
Yeah.
that is about a giant shark causing mayhem.
It was a bit tame.
Yeah, it was very tame, but of course it's a PG-13, so it's going to be hampered by that rating. So yeah, and for a PG-13, it was probably about as violent as you can get. But I just would have loved to see the R-rated, ridiculous, proper Ben Wheatley version.
I actually went to the cast and crew screening.
Oh,
Yeah, for the Meg 2.
there?
Media hotshot.
I know. Well, yeah, because my partner, shout out to Lauren, she worked on the Meg 2 on the production. Yeah, and it was I don't know if
Do
we
you want to take back some of what you just said?
yeah.
No, because I'm sure she'd agree.
She doesn't care.
She did a great job.
And it seems like neither does Ben Wheatley.
Exactly.
But they had they introduced the film, like Ben Wheatley wasn't there, but they introduced the film and he introduced it. I can't remember the exact phrasing he said, but it was something along the lines of, "This is interesting."
I thought you were going to say this is a film that exists.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Because he was in China promoting it.
Right.
Because to be honest,
yes, there was so much of the playing to the Chinese market in that film, wasn't there? Yeah.
that is where all the money's made for those films. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. But I understand, and I guess the good thing about it is that making Meg 2 means that hopefully that's financed about 5 of his new proper Ben Wheatley films, and I can't wait for those to happen.
No,
So
he's coming back with Meg 3.
Meg
He's got
3.
a taste of the big bucks now.
Even mega.
there was a time when he was supposed to be doing the new Tomb Raider film, and I'm kind of sad that never happened. Although now, having seen the Meg 2, then I guess the Tomb Raider film wouldn't have been as Ben Wheatley as I wanted either. So yeah, it was a shame because I just wanted more for it, and I hadn't seen the Meg. So maybe
that was your first mistake.
So maybe if I'd seen the Meg, I would have been more invested. But I don't think so.
So
I broadly got what was going on.
So when you went into a film about one of the biggest shark going in and just eating everyone.
Yeah.
What was your expectation?
That it would be more violent. And that more people would get eaten. In fact, at the final act, like, it takes place on like a holiday resort island, right?
Yeah.
And I would have liked the whole film just to be that. I would have liked it to be Jason Statham. He's just hanging out. He's on holidays, enjoying himself, sunning on the beach, and then all of a sudden, oh, that bloody shark's come along again. I'm going to sort this shark out. Yeah, I would have enjoyed more of the mayhem that kind of happened in the third act, and instead there's just all this stuff at the beginning with these, and they set up these big like suits that that walk underwater, but then that doesn't really get used at any point ever. No. It's just like no one punches a shark with one or anything. It's just like
there was one shot which I really liked, which was inside the shark's mouth whilst it was munching on people.
Right, yeah, yes, yeah. And
I felt like they could have done a bit more of that.
Yeah, it certainly had its moments, but yeah, it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And similarly, last one, Cocaine Bear. What a disappointment that was, because when I go to see a film about a bear taking cocaine and eating some people, I want to see a bear taking some cocaine and eating some people.
You just want to see people get eaten, don't you?
I do.
By animals.
And I want
What's going on?
Exactly. Well, why do you think Grizzly Man is my favourite Werner Herzog film?
Oh my God.
The bear wasn't on cocaine, it was on ketamine. Boring.
I don't think a bear could eat anyone on ketamine.
Have you ever tried giving a bear ketamine?
Ketamine bear, I'd love to see, actually.
The Yogi Bear.
Oh my God.
Yogi bear in a K-hole.
None of this is going in. But no, again, it seemed to be, it was a film that was hampered by its, I presume Cocaine Bear was a PG-13 because it certainly felt like it. And it had all this wholesome family subplot going on. And I was like, come on, man, I'm here to watch some bears eat some people, and you're messing about with all these family values and stuff like that. Family. Yeah, what is this? A Fast and Furious film? Anyway, such a shame. And it took itself far too seriously for what it was. It didn't get the tone right. And in that sense, it reminded me of Snakes on a Plane. And then it had this like exploitation title and then took itself way too seriously. And
I've had it with this motherfudging bear on this motherfudging cocaine.
Exactly. Just like Snakes on a Plane. It just did not deliver on its title. So shame on you, Cocaine Bear.
Fair.
Shame on you.
Fair enough, mate.
So you are listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and we have been talking all things film in 2023 for this very special end-of-year episode. So we've just been talking about our biggest disappointments of the year. Because
film-wise, not life-wise,
not personally-wise.
I was told
we don't have time.
All day.
Yeah, we don't have time for that. We really
Unfortunately.
don't. Believe
maybe
me.
Next episode.
Yeah, if you got a few days. Now it is time for us to get a little bit more positive and talk about some of our favourite films of the year.
Yeah.
So who's going to start us off on that one? Nadine?
Well, 1001. I'm not the biggest music fan, I'm not the biggest soundtrack fan, but I think the soundtrack is such an integral part of this film. It's like another character in this film, and it really elevates the film on an emotional level. And I was really just sort of taken away by the music of the film. It does a similar thing to what I think the soundtrack in Moonlight does, and the soundtrack in The Yards by James Gray, in which it takes this story about this very working class mother and her son, or this very working class family, and it elevates it to a level that's almost kind of operatic, that's kind of larger than life, and it just sort of really makes this film grander in some way. And as a working class person myself, I often feel like our stories are marginalised. They're often told only in a kind of soap opera way. They're not seen as big and as important as stories of people from the middle and upper classes. And I think this film really goes against that. And you really sort of swept along with the music, you're swept along with this story, you're really emotionally invested in these characters, And whether you agree or disagree with what they do, I think you really empathise with them and you really see things from their point of view. And I just think it's an amazing film, and I want more people to see it. I didn't get to see it at the cinema. I saw it on Now TV. So if you have Now TV, I recommend streaming it. It may be available to buy as well on other services. Beautiful story set in Harlem. It's a young woman. She starts the film, comes out of Rikers Island, a prison in New York. She's in her early 20s. It's the 90s, and that period detail is so beautiful in this. Honestly, down to the way she lines her lips, down to the belt she wears in her jeans, down to the bandanas she wears. Honestly, perfect period detailing. My sister was a huge hip-hop and R&B fan, and I could sort of... The film sort of spans many years, and there was times where I was like, oh my god, that bandana is the exact style of bandana that people wore in 2001. So I really appreciated those period details. It really took me back to that time. I grew up in the 90s. I was a teenager in the noughties. Yeah, I just thought, and it just an amazing sense of place. The director was really interested in this idea of gentrification, and she said it was really hard to go back to Harlem and shoot this film there because a lot of those places didn't exist anymore, and they had to shoot bits and pieces here and there. It's quite, an emotional story. I cried at the end. I mentioned Moonlight. I don't want to mention it too much because I think it's a different film, but it had a similar structure in that we see this child at 3 different stages, as a small child, as a young teenager, and then as an older teenager, and it reminded me a little bit of Angela's Ashes in that way. I think my only gripe is whenever you see the same character portrayed by different actors, I often feel like I emotionally identify with that first actor that portrays that character. And I think in this, I would have loved to have seen more of that relationship with Inez and her younger son, the younger version of her son, because I think he was such an amazing child actor, and their relationship was so beautifully done. There's some twists and turns in this film. I understand why it's structured that way. And when you get to the end of the film, you're like, yes, we did need to see that whole journey of that child growing up. But I just loved those moments so much, and I just wanted a bit more of that relationship. But I do recommend this film. I think it was beautifully made. It's a debut feature of a woman director, which I'm all about supporting. Lena Thwaite was one of the producers. Amazing soundtrack, some great deep cut sort of hip hop tracks, and other tracks in it as well. And just, beautiful film. Will leave you emotionally devastated by the end, but also weirdly uplifted.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll have to check that out.
Check it out. I think if we get the chance, I definitely want to screen it at Screen B14 because I think more people need to see this film. The main actress has had some Oscar buzz. It might get lost because I feel like the film came out a little bit earlier in America, and often the later films get a bit more attention. But I do hope it gets some awards because I think it's a beautiful film.
Lovely. Anything else you want to very quickly mention?
Honourable mentions: Pearl, we screened that at Screen B14. Medusa Deluxe, a fun kind of murder mystery one-shot movie set in a hairdressing competition. Rye Lane, we also showed that at Screen B14. The Pale Blue Eye, a gothic kind of Poe mystery on Netflix, which I just love that vibe. Christian Bale was really good in it.
I like that.
And my other favourite films of the year, Killers of the Flower Moon, which we've mentioned on the first episode of this show, so I won't get into detail, but I love that. That is probably my favourite film of the year. I hope it gets all the awards. Lily Gladstone needs her Oscar now. Give her all her flowers, please. And I really enjoyed Polite Society. It was fun. It was fast-paced. Action comedy. A young South Asian girl wants to be a stunt woman. It's silly. It had a kind of spaced energy for me, kind of Edgar Wright-esque. Same director who did We Are Lady Parts on Channel 4. So, yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon, Polite Society, and 1001 are my top recommendations from 2023.
Thanks, Nadine. So, Rory, what have you enjoyed this year?
Yeah, a lot of the films Nadine's mentioned, mainly because she screened them. So Rye Lane I really enjoyed, and Pearl as well. Barbie, I think we have to mention that, as we mentioned earlier. It was Brilliant film. I loved it. I didn't think I was going into it loving it. I thought it was going to be cheesy or whatever, but I thought it was amazing, so funny, and also emotional as well. Like particularly the end, that montage with the Billie Eilish song, I thought was really good as well. But no, I've chosen Fabelmans, which was, I think, February of this year. It was a lot earlier.
Very early.
Yeah, it was very early, to the point where I didn't even think it was this year. I mean, he's a master. It was watching a master at work, I think. It was criticised a lot as being kind of like a home movie, like a very small film. But for me, it just says everything. Especially, I think I related it a lot as well with, my childhood. And I think, which really it was about basically Steven Spielberg or a young Sammy watching his parents' love really fall apart through the lens of the camera, and watch it, and then trying to take control of that narrative really, which then led to sort of him rebuilding himself through that, which led to his passion for filmmaking. That all started really when he first watched that film with the train crash. It completely traumatized him, but he was enamored by it, and then he used filmmaking really to overcome that fear. And it's the same thing really with his parents' marriage and it falling apart. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I loved the ending. I loved a certain someone. Oh, look, he's come through the door now. Oh, hello. What are you doing here?
Do you mean me? David Lynch playing John Ford and giving some wonderful advice to the young Steven Spielberg at the end of the film. You've got to remember where the horizon is. That's right. That's what he said.
Okay, thanks, David. See ya.
Bye.
I loved that ending. It was brilliant. The final shot of that film, it was so funny and clever and just,
I've got to watch it. I haven't seen
the
it
slight,
yet.
do you know what I mean? The slight sort of, the imperfection. I think it was about really, a shot is perfect if it's imperfect, I think. And I loved that. I thought that was amazing. Yeah. What were your thoughts? Because you weren't the biggest fan of it in the end.
I wasn't. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it just wasn't top tier Spielberg for me, and I certainly didn't come away with it with that warmer feeling.
What is top tier Spielberg for you?
Lincoln. Actually, I meant to mention Lincoln last episode when we were talking about Napoleon, because that was the kind of biopic that I like, in that it focuses on a very specific part of his life, and I just thought it's a masterpiece. The usual Spielberg stuff is top tier, but and War of the Worlds. No, I really do.
Jones.
Yeah, that's another one we haven't really talked about much. I definitely enjoyed The Fabelmans more than Indiana Jones, but of course he didn't actually direct the new one, which I think was part of the main problem with the new Indiana Jones.
Dial of Destiny, not the original Indiana Jones.
Yes, yeah, no, of course, yeah, the Dial of Destiny.
I've got to say, I've not seen it, but I've got a lot of time for Paul Dano, so I will go.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I certainly don't mean to say that. I didn't like it. I've given it 3 stars on my list. It didn't really touch me.
Slightly
as
above
much,
average.
So, but again, maybe I was in a bad mood, and also it was at the beginning of the year, so I barely remember anything about it other than David Lynch, and you had to remind me that he was in it.
I think it was a perfect viewing experience for me. In that I was in the Odeon Lux. The recliner fully reclined, and also I related to it in a visceral way.
Yeah,
like my childhood connected to that in a very visceral way, which is not good. Everyone's not going to get. So yeah, I did love that.
Yeah. No,
I'm definitely going to check it out. It's been on my watch list for a long time, but I never feel in the mood for it. But I know I want to watch it. But now that you've sold it to me, I'm gonna go watch it.
Good stuff. Well, I'd say I'd revisit it, but I probably won't. But maybe I should one day. I'll just watch the David Lynch scene on repeat.
On repeat.
In the mirror.
That's all. I just wish the whole film had been about
David
Lynch being John Ford.
Wow.
It was John Ford, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The
sequel.
So, yeah, exactly.
So what was your favourite film?
Well, quickly, I've drafted a little top 5. Pearl. Definitely, even though I guess it was made last year, but it was released this year in the UK. Beau is Afraid, because I'm a massive Ari Aster fan.
Divisive.
Very divisive, and it was certainly no Midsommar, but I truly enjoyed that film.
Can I just say, sorry, that I went to see it in the audience. I went to a late night screening and I was the only person laughing.
Oh, really?
I laughed quite a lot during that
That's the
film.
thing. It is so funny, and it's
a dark comedy.
It really is a dark comedy, and also I think again the viewing experience for me made it, because I unknowingly went to see that film with COVID, and it wasn't until it wasn't until. Because it started feeling a bit unwell, and then it wasn't until I kind of got into it, I was like, oh, I'm actually really genuinely feverish, and I think, oh no, I'm not well. And I thought that made it kind of like a 4DX experience, because the film is a fever dream of a film, and for me to literally be feverish and
Paul
ill,
is afraid.
Paul is afraid.
That could be your autobiography. I just want to apologise as well, because I gave Paul COVID.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. No, and I didn't knowingly go to the cinema
Yeah.
with COVID. I was feeling a bit under the weather, and then as the film went on, I was like, oh, this is more than under the weather, isn't it? I'm actually, I've got COVID, haven't I? So that kind of added to the experience for me, and I just thought it was, just great. Yeah, again, it was another example of like a director making some very successful films and the studio going, do what you like, mate, and then he just comes out with a self-indulgent 3-hour mess, and brilliant. That's what I like. Also, The Royal Hotel is in my top 5, which we discussed the other week on the show. Also, The Beasts, which I would love to have time to talk about a little bit more, but that was released in the UK this year, and that's a Spanish-French thriller about a French couple moving into the Galician countryside in northern Spain, and then getting into conflicts with the locals, and it's just a really, really good film. And I don't have time to really go into why it was quite so great, but the film I'm going to talk about, because I'd say it's probably the film that I remember the most, is Reality. If you remember that or heard about that.
I've heard it.
It's about the arrest of a whistleblower, or is she a whistleblower? And it's previous listeners of the show will know that I love a good procedural. And this film, it's that 5-minute scene in a cop movie where they raid the house, but that's the whole film, as in it just follows the process of these police turning up and arresting and searching this young woman's house. And it's just wonderful. Like, it just goes into these wonderful little mundane details. So it's actually based on the actual transcripts of the real life arrests, as in word for word, this is how the raid went. It's just got these wonderful little details of humanity in it. Like, she's at first, like, she's really over polite, and there's these interludes into domesticity and just like friendly conversation between her and the FBI agents who are in the process of taking her in. There's just so much talk about the logistics of what to do with the dog whilst we're talking to you. What room are we going to talk in? Like, where are we going to move?
It sounds like, Paul, you should have worked for the police and admin.
It's quite possible. But yeah, there's all the mundane details, just, the cleanliness of different rooms, and, where we're going to do this. And then you question whether they're being nice. There's like, they try and be nice and just do the usual human niceties, but obviously the undercurrent is they're about to take her down for for doing some possibly very serious stuff, and you really kind of just get engrossed in it. It reminded me a little bit of Mass, if you remember that, the Jason Isaacs film. It's just set in a room, and it's just two parents of some school victim shootings just talking in a room for the whole film. I liked that film a lot, but my problem with it is it very much felt like a play with its one location setting. But I think this, despite all taking place in one house and literally just being based on these transcriptions, it feels a lot more cinematic than Mass did for me, because it's got all these lovely little nice visual flourishes. So there's like information that is redacted from the actual transcripts, and the film deals with this by just literally having the character be redacted from the screen when she's saying like certain things and classified information or whatever. And there's just all these little bits, like use of shallow focus when the world starts closing in on her, and it's just got this amazing build-up of tension. Like, there's bits of it where it's almost like a horror movie with the score. You've just got the FBI agents pretending to be all really nice, but they've just got this sinister smile going on, and then there's this like slowly building score that you just like, ooh, you know, and there's all these little details, there's just the little hints at sexism, like they assume that her rifle is going to be pink, you know, when they find out she's got a rifle and all that kind of stuff, and that you know, the shock at how much she can bench press and the fact that she can speak all these languages. But I also like that it wasn't kind of overly political, like it's not like Oliver Stone, like properly shoving its politics down your throat. By using just the transcripts of the film, that kind of diminishes the chance of it being ideologically tainted in a way, because it's just like, this is actually what's said, this is what happened. It's quite difficult for it to kind of skew your view on it by taking that approach. But yeah, and it's just a great little study on the nature of memory, because they're asking her these questions, and you know, she's getting her dates mixed up because of course you would, and you don't know, is she being elusive or just genuinely forgetful? And Sydney Sweeney's performance is just excellent, and so much of the film is just close-ups of her face processing what's happening and just seeing what's about to happen dawn on her, and it's just so well done. And it's got an 82-minute runtime, which is perfect for the kind of film it is. So yeah, that may not have been the best film of the year, but for me it was definitely the one that stuck with me the most, and I just really wanted to talk about it because I don't think loads of people saw it, so there you go. And yeah, just a really inventive thing, because I don't think I've really seen anything that has actually been based on actual transcripts like that. Because I remember there was that Rick and Morty video where it's just like an actual court transcript that's been turned into a Rick and Morty cartoon. But I struggle to think of any other films that kind of follow that formula. They must exist, but...
Do email us in.
Yeah, do email us in at Picture Show at Brum Radio. Rory looks like he's got a film on the top
I'm sure
of
there's
his...
a film I watched a few years ago, and do email us in if you know this film. There's a film, it's about a woman who works in a fast food restaurant, and someone doesn't pay, I think, and then they kidnap him, or they lock him in a room and wait for the police to come. But the police don't come for ages, and they just have him in this room.
Okay.
And it's kind of about that unfolding.
Right,
it was okay, but I can't remember what that damn film's called now, and it's going to be really annoying.
If you know the name of that film...
I know we're not going to use this, but but I just can't remember what it's called.
You're listening to the Brum Picture Show on Brum Radio, and we have been having a lovely little chat about 2023 and the year in film. But now, before we go, we just want to briefly talk about what we're looking forward to in 2024.
I'm looking forward to see Ryan Gosling perform I'm Just Ken at the Oscars.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to see that. This is a prediction. I haven't had news of this, but I think they'll be missing a trick if they don't do a full-on Busby Berkeley type musical number with Ryan Gosling singing that song at the Oscars in 2024. So, yeah, that's my prediction. Looking forward to films. I was looking forward to this film this year, Dune 2, but then the actors and the writers' strike happened and they pushed it back to 2024. As Timothée Chalamet himself tweeted, Junie Dune. I have to say, I'm not saying the first film was like the best film ever made. I think this review from Letterboxd perfectly sums it up. From Cookie, not bad if you ever just feel like staring at the colour orange and not feeling a single emotion for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But you know what? Sometimes you just want to stare at the colour orange, not feel an emotion for 2.5 hours, and listen to a pretty amazing soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. Yeah, and I love the sound. And the sound mix is amazing. And I'm not a big sound and music person, but I went to see this at the cinema, and it was an experience in the best sense. It was the theme park ride in the best sense. It did feel 4D. And it felt like, I have my gripes with the first Dune film, but you know what? Just let it wash over you. Let the sands wash over you. Let the music and the sound wash over you, and just enjoy it. Other films that I'm looking forward to. Oh, I'm really looking forward to Nosferatu by Robert Eggers.
Oh, yeah. I forgot
Yeah.
that was happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've seen shots from it. We've seen shots of Lily Rose Depp. We've seen a few sneak peeks from it. I think it's the perfect subject matter for him. I didn't go and see Northman at the cinema because I didn't fancy it, but actually watching it at home, again, really another one with an amazing sound mix that just took me into this world. I got a lot of time for Steve McQueen. He's got a new film coming out, Occupied City. I don't know very much about it, but I'll watch anything that he makes. I think he's brilliant.
Same, yeah, I'd like to watch that.
Megalopolis. I think it's going to be a hot mess.
Is that actually coming out next year?
So I've heard. Francis Ford Coppola, Adam Driver's starring in it.
Oh.
There's been all sorts of reports of like chaos on set. Apocalypse Now was one of the most chaotic films ever made, and it's also one of my favourite films ever made. I don't think this will live up to that. I don't think it's going to be as amazing as Apocalypse Now. It might not even be very good, but I just want to see the car crash of it if it's that bad. I just want to see. I think Francis Ford Coppola is so unique in the way that he's taken on the financial burdens of his films, and he's been very true to his artistic vision. And I just want to see what he's done. I just think it's going to be mad. Beetlejuice 2, can't wait for that. Civil War, Alex Garland, looking forward to that. Yeah, so those are my films I'm looking forward to next year.
Lovely. I agree with a lot of those, definitely. Rory, what are you looking forward to?
All of those. And to add to that, Mickey 17, so that's the Bong Joon-ho film.
Ah, cool.
There's a film called Society of the Snow.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to that. I've only just read about.
Was that the Netflix?
About the 1972 Uruguayan plane crash.
I love a good plane crash. So that sounds really good.
And you love cannibalism as well. Perfect.
Perfect.
For you there, Paul. I don't know why I've written Kung Fu Panda 4.
I think you know why.
You know why.
Because you're looking forward to it, Rory. Own it.
Skadoosh.
Admit it.
I love the first one, which I think you said you did, Nadine.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter was of an age where she was watching a lot of rubbishy cartoon movies, but that one was a great one.
That was a great one. Kung Fu Panda 2 wasn't quite as good. Kung Fu Panda 3 I didn't watch.
Neither did
so I might come back to Kung Fu Panda 4. You know,
There you go.
who knows?
Bring it back.
Yeah.
I actually am not going to watch that film.
You've written it down. You've written it down. You will. You definitely will.
Maybe we'll screen it.
Yeah.
Screen B14.
True.
Let's all go together.
Yeah.
Do you know what though? Again, this is not. But it's the Super Mario Brothers movie. I did really enjoy that.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Well, we screened it, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
But yes, Society of the Snow and Mickey 17. I think. Yeah. What about yourself?
I agree with a lot of those, especially Kung Fu Panda 4. And yeah, Dune, Beetlejuice 2. I'm also very much looking forward to Yorgos Lanthimos' next feature, Poor Things, because I absolutely adore his films. I believe we were talking about Killing of a Sacred Deer last episode.
The Lobster.
So
The Lobster.
Yeah, The Lobster
I
is
love
great.
that as well.
Lobster is great. Very much looking forward to that. Also looking forward to Furiosa, the new Mad Max spin-off, because let's face it, the new Mad Max film, which I guess probably came out nearly 10 years ago now or something like that, is just one of the best.
The new Mad Max film.
It's one of the best action films of
We
recent
can't
years.
go into this. I think that film's rubbish.
What?
I
definitely
didn't
don't have
sit
time
through
for
it.
that. Oh my
I couldn't sit
goodness.
through it. But I
Whoa
do
there.
love Charlize Theron. I was a bit disappointed that she won't be in
We
this
can't go
film.
into it. Okay, let's slow down. Let's
okay.
slow down.
We can't. What? No, we don't have time for that. That's it. I'm really looking forward to Furiosa. Really?
It's just a film. It's about a guy on cars, and they go up one place and then they go down.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Oh, mate. It's wow.
I didn't get it.
No, I think it's George Miller's best film. It's up there with Babe Pig in the City. So,
He directed that?
you didn't know that?
Oh my God.
George Miller, director of the Mad Max films, directed the Babe films and also Happy Feet with the dancing penguins.
He's got
I prefer
such
Happy
a
Feet.
sporadic career, and Witches of Eastwick, I believe.
Oh, yes,
which
exactly.
is actually a very good film.
Yeah, man. So he's great. I just love that he, in his 70s or whatever, came back with new Mad Max and was like, "Oi, everyone, this is how you make an action film." Ugh, my God, Rory. Sorry. Also, very much looking forward to Fede Alvarez's new Alien film, because I was a huge fan of Don't Breathe and his remake of Evil Dead, which terrifyingly is also 10 years old now.
What?
That's bonkers. I never expected the Evil Dead remake to be good, and I thought it was excellent. So definitely looking forward to seeing what he's done with an Alien film. And apparently Ridley Scott's seen it, and he said, "It's effing good."
Hang on, was that a Yorkshire accent I detected?
Yeah.
Why, man, it's effing good, like.
Cancelled again.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, lots to look forward to in 2024. And we hope that you have very much enjoyed our roundup of 2023. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Don't forget, if you would like to add your thoughts, email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com.
Follow us on our social media channels, the platform formerly known as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at ScreenB14, or follow us on Letterboxd, Brum Picture Show.
So we will see you in the new year.
Woo!
Well, you'll hear us in the new year, hopefully.
Yeah. I hope we won't see you. It might
Yeah.
be quite awkward.
Yeah, if you just turn up at the studio and start
Yeah.
complaining at us. Yeah.
But yeah, and please come along to our screenings. We've got 3 in January.
Mm-hmm.
We've got on the 6th of January, The Muppets movie. We've got on the 18th of January, Midland Shorts, our 5th birthday screening extravaganza. And on the 27th of January, we've got The Red Shoes. So check out www.ticketsource.co.uk/screen-B14.
Lovely. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
For now, it's goodbye from me, Paul.
It's goodbye from me, Nadine.
And have a happy new year. Goodbye from me, Rory.
Goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to The Brum Picture Show, a Screen B14 production for Brum Radio. Tune in next time for more film fun, and don't forget to email us at pictureshow@brumradio.com. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
I'm just kidding. Ryan Gosling was the best thing in that movie.
Thank you for listening to this Brum Radio podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on your podcast app.